Welcome back to Midnight Voice, where silence speaks and darkness listens. Tonight, I'm sharing a new story that's best heard when you're alone. Comment below and tell me the time you're watching this. And your location, because some stories change depending on where you are. I never thought I'd be desperate enough to take a job at the Seaview Lodge, but after 6 months of unemployment and staring at eviction notices, the ad felt like a lifeline. Live-in caretaker wanted for seasonal coastal lodge. Minimal interaction, upkeep duties, private quarters provided. Competitive pay. It was the live-in part that sealed it. No rent meant I could actually save money. The interview was a brief, awkward phone call with a man named Mr. The Lasso, whose voice sounded like gravel rolling in distant waves. He asked if I had a problem with solitude, if I was prone to curiosity, and if I could follow instructions to the letter. I assured him I was the most rule-following, uncurious person alive. I got the job. The lodge was a sprawling, weather-beaten structure perched on a cliff overlooking the Pacific, about 20 miles from the nearest town. It had once been grand, with a wide wraparound porch and large windows meant to capture the ocean vistas, but now the paint was peeling, and the whole place groaned with every gust of wind. My quarters were a small apartment behind the front desk, a bedroom, a kitchenette, and a bathroom. The main lodge had 12 guest rooms, though Mr. The Lasso informed me they were rarely all occupied, especially during the off-season. My duties were simple: check in the occasional guest, clean the common areas, tend to the garden, and ensure the place didn't fall apart. On my first day, Mr. The Lasso met me in person, a tall, gaunt man with skin the color of old driftwood and eyes that never quite focused on you. He handed me a single sheet of paper, typed in a faint, old-fashioned font. "These are your rules," he said, his tone leaving no room for discussion. "They are not guidelines. They are not suggestions. They are absolute. Follow them, and your employment will be prosperous and uneventful. Stray from them, and I cannot guarantee your safety, nor can I continue your employment. Do you understand?" I nodded, glancing at the paper. The rules were bizarre, to say the least. He watched me read them, then left without another word. I didn't see him again for a month. The rules were as follows. 1. The third floor is strictly off-limits between the hours of 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. Do not ascend the stairs, do not acknowledge any sounds from that floor, and under no circumstances attempt to access it during this time. If a guest requests a room on the third floor after 11 p.m., politely inform them none are available. 2. Always carry a packet of sea salt in your pocket at all times. Refill it daily from the supply in the kitchen. If you feel a sudden, unexplainable chill, or if you hear whispering that seems to come from the walls, sprinkle a pinch of salt at your feet. 3. The lobby grandfather clock must be wound precisely at 9 a.m. every day. If it ever chimes 13 times, immediately exit the building and do not return until sunrise. 4. Guests are to be addressed only by the names listed in the ledger. Do not ask for their names if they are not listed. If you encounter a guest in the halls who casts no shadow, do not make eye contact, do not speak to them, and walk away as if you have seen nothing. 5. The basement door is to remain locked at all times. You have no reason to go down there. If you hear scratching from the basement door, do not investigate. Turn up the radio in your quarters until the sound is drowned out. 6. Mirror in the hallway on the second floor, room 207, is covered with a black cloth. Never remove the cloth. If you find the cloth removed, do not look into the mirror. Cover it again without letting your eyes focus on the glass. 7. The ocean view from the west porch is safe to enjoy during daylight hours. After sunset, do not look at the ocean for more than a fleeting glance. If you see lights moving beneath the waves, go inside immediately and lock the door. 8. You will receive weekly grocery deliveries. Tip the delivery person exactly $2.37 in change. No more, no less. Do not engage in conversation with them. 9. If a storm rolls in from the east and the rain appears black, close all curtains and blinds. Do not listen to the rain. Use the provided earplugs. 10. Your shift ends at 10 p.m. Retire to your quarters and do not leave until 6 a.m., regardless of any disturbances you may hear. Your quarters are your sanctuary. The rules seemed like a bad joke, the kind of thing you'd find in a cheap horror story. But the pay was direct deposited every Friday, and the solitude was, at first, peaceful. I decided to humor my eccentric employer. I tucked a sea salt packet into my jeans pocket, wound the clock at 9, and ignored the oddities. The first few weeks were quiet. I had only 2 guests, an elderly birdwatcher who stayed 3 days and a writer looking for solitude. Both left without incident. I settled into a routine, the strangeness of the rules becoming a mundane part of my day. Then, one Tuesday night, I broke a rule. Not intentionally. I'd stayed up late reading, and around 11:30, I realized I'd left my favorite mug in the lobby. I figured I'd just pop out and grab it, a 30-second trip. As I opened my door, I heard it, music. Faint, tinny, like an old music box, drifting down from the 3rd floor. It was a melody I'd never heard, both sweet and sorrowful. I froze, 1 foot in the hallway. Rule 1 screamed in my head. But the music was so hauntingly beautiful. I took a step. Then another. I stood at the base of the stairs leading to the 3rd floor. The music seemed to wrap around me, pulling me upward. I shook my head, clenched the sea salt packet in my pocket, and hurried back to my room, locking the door behind me. My heart pounded. For the rest of the night, I heard footsteps pacing above my ceiling, though no guest was registered on the 3rd floor. I didn't sleep. The next morning, the music was gone, and everything seemed normal. But I noticed something new, a faint smell of brine and decay in the hallway, like low tide on a hot day. It was a warning. I became more diligent with the rules. I refilled my salt packet every morning. I wound the clock precisely. I avoided looking at the ocean after dark. But the lodge had a way of testing you. A week later, I was cleaning the lobby when a man walked in. He was tall, dressed in a suit that seemed too formal for the coastal chill. He had no luggage. I smiled, ready to check him in, but as he approached the desk, I saw it, or rather, I didn't see it. The afternoon sun streamed through the window, casting my shadow long across the floor. But where his shadow should have been, there was only empty, well-lit carpet. My blood went cold. Rule 4. Do not make eye contact. Do not speak. I looked down at the ledger, pretending to be engrossed in it. I could feel him standing there, a presence that made the air feel thick and cold. After a moment, he turned and walked up the stairs without a word. I didn't breathe until I heard a door click shut on the 2nd floor. I checked the ledger. No new registration. I sprinkled salt at my feet and the chill lifted. The grandfather clock became a point of obsession for me. It was an ancient, ornate thing, and winding it felt like a ritual. One morning, after a particularly restless night, I wounded a minute late. At 9:01 a.m., the mechanism groaned, and the clock chimed. Once, twice, it kept going. 12 chimes. I sighed in relief. Then it chimed a 13th time, a deep, discordant sound that vibrated in my bones. I stood paralyzed for a second before Rule 3 kicked in. I ran. I sprinted out the front door, down the porch steps, and didn't stop until I was on the gravel driveway, gasping for air. I turned back. The lodge looked normal, silent. But I waited. I spent the day in my car, parked far from the building, watching. As sunset approached, I saw shapes moving behind the windows of the 3rd floor, silhouettes that were too long, too thin to be human. The black cloth over the mirror in room 207 slipped once. I was changing the linens in room 205 when I heard a soft thud from across the hall. The door to 207 was ajar. It was always kept locked. I pushed it open slowly. The room was dusty, unfurnished except for a large, ornate mirror leaning against the far wall. The black cloth that usually covered it lay in a heap on the floor. My eyes instinctively started to lift toward the glass. I caught a glimpse of my reflection, but it wasn't right. My image was twisted, grinning at me with malice. I jerked my gaze down, stumbling forward. I fumbled for the cloth, my hands trembling. I could feel the mirror pulling at my peripheral vision, urging me to look. I threw the cloth over it, not letting my eyes focus, and backed out of the room, locking the door securely. That night, in my dreams, the mirrored version of me chased me through endless hallways. The delivery person for the groceries was a silent, stern woman who never made eye contact. I counted out exactly $2.37 in change each time. One week, I accidentally gave her $2.40. She took it without a word, but that evening, the scratching from the basement door began. It was a persistent, frantic sound, like something trying to dig its way out. I remembered Rule 5. I turned up the old radio in my quarters to a blaring static. The scratching grew louder, more desperate, until it was a furious scraping. I could hear it even over the radio. Then, it stopped abruptly. The next morning, I found deep, parallel gouges in the wood of the basement door, as if made by claws. I never made a mistake with the tip again. The most unsettling rule involved the ocean. During the day, the view was breathtaking, endless blue waves crashing against the cliffs. But after dark, the sea became a vast, black void. One evening, feeling reckless, I stood on the west porch and stared out. At first, nothing. Then, I saw them, lights, soft and greenish, moving in slow patterns beneath the surface. They weren't from boats, they seemed to pulse with a life of their own. As I watched, mesmerized, they began to coalesce into shapes that resembled enormous, drifting jellyfish, but with a disturbing symmetry that spoke of intelligence. A deep, subsonic hum vibrated through the porch boards. Rule 7. I stumbled inside, locking the door. For hours, I heard a wet, slapping sound against the porch, as if something had climbed up to investigate. The black rain happened during a storm that came from the east. The clouds were a peculiar bruised purple, and when the rain fell, it was thick and oily, leaving dark streaks on the windows. I closed all the curtains and inserted the earplugs Mr. the Lasso had left in a drawer. With the earplugs in, the world was silent, but I could see the shadows of the rain moving on the curtains, forming shapes that pressed against the glass. I stayed in the center of the room until dawn. The final straw came when a guest arrived late one night. A young couple, laughing and clearly in love, checking in after a long drive. They were in room 204, second floor. At 10 p.m., I retired to my quarters as per Rule 10. I was almost asleep when I heard a scream, piercing, terrified, from the second floor. Then another. I sat bolt upright. Rule 10, do not leave your quarters. But these were people. I couldn't just ignore them. The screams turned into gurgles, then silence. I gripped my blanket, sweating. Then, I heard a knock on my door. Soft, polite. A woman's voice, the one from the couple, called out, "Hello. Front desk. There's something in our room. Please help." Every instinct told me to open the door. But Rule 10 was absolute. I remained silent, trembling. The knocking persisted for an hour, growing slowly more impatient, then angry. The voice changed, becoming deeper, distorted. "Let us in," it snarled. "We know you're in there." I shoved sea salt under the door. A hiss echoed from the other side, and the presence retreated. I didn't sleep that night. In the morning, I found room 204 empty, perfectly made, as if no one had ever stayed there. No trace of the couple. The ledger showed no registration for that night. I called Mr. the Lasso. He answered on the first ring. "You heard the screams," he stated, "no greeting." "Yes. What happened? Who were they? They were a test. For you. You passed by staying in your room. Had you opened the door, you would have joined them. The lodge, it requires certain appeasements. The rules are there to protect you, and to protect the balance. What balance? What is this place? He was silent for a long time. The Seaview Lodge was built on a thin place. Where the sea meets the land, where our world brushes against others. Some guests are not from here. Some are drawn to the thinness. The rules keep the lodger safe, and keep the things within from spilling out. Do you wish to leave? I thought about it. The fear, the loneliness, the horrors. But I also thought about the eviction notices, the debt, the hopelessness I felt before this job. No, I heard myself say. I need the job. Then follow the rules, he said, and hung up. I stayed. I follow the rules meticulously. The sea salt is always in my pocket. The clock is wound at 9. I never look at the ocean after dark. But I've learned more. The 3rd floor. I believe it's not a floor at all, but a gateway that opens during those hours. The thing in the basement. I think it was once a caretaker who broke the rules. The mirror shows what you could become if you succumb. The lights in the ocean are watching, waiting for a rule to be broken so they can invite themselves in. I've been here for 6 months now. The pay is still coming. Mr. The Lasso checks in rarely. I have seen shadowless guests come and go. I hear the music sometimes, but I don't listen. This is my life now. I work at Seaview Lodge. There are strange rules to follow. And if you value your sanity, your safety, your very soul, you will follow them too. This account is my warning. If you ever find yourself in a place with rules that make no sense, listen to them. They exist for a reason. And if you want to hear more tales from the thin places, the lonely motels, the deserted roads, the jobs with manuals that read like nightmares, then subscribe to this channel. Because I have stories. So many stories. And out there, in the dark, the rules are waiting to be broken. Don't be the one who breaks them. Subscribe, and stay safe.